Amazon wasn't just a job, it was my lifeline. I worked the graveyard shift at the massive Amazon warehouse in Bentonville, Arkansas. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me and my 10-year-old daughter, Sophia, afloat. As a single mom, it was all about making things work, even if it meant sacrificing sleep and sanity. Sophia's dad walked out when she was just a baby, leaving me to pick up the pieces and build a life for us. It wasn't easy, but I managed. The shift started at 11 p.m. and ended at 8 a.m. By midnight, the warehouse was humming with the sound of conveyor belts, forklifts, and the occasional shout from a coworker. The place was enormous, like a city of shelves that stretched as far as the eye could see. Nights were quieter, though. Most of the chaos came from our team rushing to pack and ship the endless stream of orders. That night was bitterly cold, the kind of chill that seeped into your bones. The heaters in the warehouse weren't doing much, and I kept my hoodie pulled tight as I scanned and stacked boxes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the rows of shelves. It was just another night, or so I thought. Around 1 a.m., I noticed a man in one of the aisles near me. He wasn't wearing a reflective vest or any gear, which was odd because everyone on shift was required to. He had a scruffy look, messy hair, a beard, and a dark hoodie. At first, I assumed he was someone from another team or maybe a delivery driver who wandered in, but something about him felt off. He wasn't moving like the rest of us. While we were busy scanning items and loading carts, he just stood there watching. I tried to shake it off, telling myself he was probably lost or waiting for someone. But as the minutes passed, he didn't leave. And worse, his gaze seemed locked on me. "Can I help you with something?" I finally asked, trying to sound casual but firm. The man didn't respond right away. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as if studying me. Then he smiled, a slow, unsettling grin that made my stomach churn. "No," he said finally, his voice low and gravelly. "Just looking." I forced a smile and turned back to my work, my hands shaking as I scanned another package. My heart was racing, but I told myself not to overreact. People acted strangely sometimes, especially during night shifts. Maybe he was harmless. Maybe. But he didn't leave. Every time I glanced up, he was there, lurking just out of reach, always watching. I moved to a different aisle, hoping to lose him in the maze of shelves, but he followed. Not right away. He waited a few minutes each time, like he didn't want to seem obvious. But I knew. I could feel his presence, hear the faint shuffle of his boots on the concrete floor. By 2:30 a.m., I was on edge. I found my co-worker, Devin, near the loading dock and pulled him aside. "Hey, there's this guy. He's been following me around," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder. Devin frowned, his brows knitting together. "What guy? Someone from our shift?" "I don't think so. He's not wearing a vest, and I've never seen him before." Devin looked around but didn't see anyone. "Want me to walk you to the supervisor's office? We can report it." I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to make a scene or blow things out of proportion, but the other part, the part that couldn't shake the image of his grin, knew I needed backup. "Yeah," I said finally. "Let's go." We made our way to the office, but the supervisor, Mark, was nowhere to be found. Typical. Devin offered to stick around, but I insisted I'd be fine. He nodded reluctantly and headed back to his section. I tried to focus on my work, keeping my head down and staying in well-lit areas, but the unease never left. And then, just after 3 a.m., I found another note. It was tucked into one of the bins I was unloading, a folded piece of paper with my name scrawled on the front. I opened it with trembling hands. The message was short, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. "You can't hide forever. I'll see you soon." My breath caught and I dropped the note like it was on fire. How did he know my name? My stomach churned as I thought about Sophia, sleeping peacefully at home. What if he knew about her too? I ran back to Devin, practically shaking. "He left me a note," I said, thrusting the paper at him. Devin read it, his face darkening. "That's it. We're calling security." The warehouse security team wasn't exactly the FBI, but they took the situation seriously. They searched the building, checking every aisle and exit, but the man was gone. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. I finished my shift in a daze, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When I got to my car, I checked the backseat twice before getting in and locking the doors. The drive home was a blur, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. When I finally got home, I rushed to Sophia's room and found her sound asleep, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched in her arms. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. On the kitchen counter, next to my keys, was another note. "Nice house. Cute kid. See you soon." I called the police immediately, my voice shaking as I explained everything. They sent an officer to take my statement and promised to increase patrols in my neighborhood. But the fear didn't go away. Every shadow outside my window felt like him, every creak of the house like a threat. I didn't go back to the warehouse after that. I couldn't. The thought of seeing him again, or worse, putting Sophia in danger, was too much. I found another job, one that let me work from home, but the paranoia never left. To this day, I triple-check every lock, every window, and every time I see a man in a dark hoodie, my heart skips a beat, because I know he's still out there, watching, waiting. My name is Kyle Monroe, and I've been an Amazon delivery driver for about 3 years. I've seen it all. Overly curious neighbors, kids trying to sneak packages before their parents, and even the occasional dog chase. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened that summer day in Riverview, a quiet suburb outside of Cleveland. It was a Tuesday, just past noon, and the sun was blazing. I had my list of deliveries, neatly ordered by the app, and my van was stocked to the brim. I was on my second to last stop of the day, looking forward to grabbing a cold drink on my way back to the warehouse. The address was a typical suburban home, cream siding, a neatly trimmed lawn, and a swing set in the backyard. The kind of house you'd see in a TV commercial. I pulled up, grabbed the medium-sized package from the back of my van, and double-checked the address. It matched. Walking up the driveway, I noticed the front door slightly ajar. Strange, but not unheard of. Sometimes people just forget to close their doors all the way. I hesitated for a second, wondering if I should knock or just leave the package. "Hello? Delivery for Mr. and Mrs. Rains." I called out, my voice echoing through the still air. No answer. I stepped closer to the door, about to set the package down, when it suddenly swung open with a loud creak. Standing there was a man, mid-40s, average build, with graying hair and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled in years. But what caught my attention was the gun in his hand, pointed directly at me. "Get inside," he barked, his voice cold and sharp. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. My instinct was to run, but his eyes locked on mine, and I could tell he wasn't bluffing. He motioned with the gun, his impatience clear. "Now." "All right, man. Take it easy," I stammered, raising my hands. "You don't need to do this." "Shut up and move," he snapped, stepping aside to let me in. The door slammed shut behind me. The man led me through the dimly lit hallway into the basement. The air was damp, and the faint smell of mildew hung in the air. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a single wooden chair surrounded by tools and clutter. He shoved me into the chair and quickly tied my wrists and ankles with rope he found lying around. His movements were rushed but deliberate. "Stay quiet," he said, his voice low but firm. "You make a sound, and this won't end well for you." I nodded, my throat dry. "Look, man, if it's money you want, I don't have much. My wallet's in the van." He ignored me, muttering something under his breath as he checked the knots on the ropes. Satisfied, he walked back up the stairs without another word. Moments later, I heard the faint rumble of my van's engine starting. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself. He was taking my van. As soon as I was sure he was gone, I started testing the ropes. They were tight, but I remembered a trick my brother, a former Army vet, had taught me. If you flex and relax your muscles quickly, You can sometimes loosen a tight knot. It wasn't easy. The coarse rope burned my skin as I struggled. But after what felt like an eternity, the ropes around my wrists began to slacken. Finally, I freed my hands and quickly untied my legs. I stood up, adrenaline surging through my veins. The basement door was locked, so I turned to the small window in the corner. It was barely big enough for me to squeeze through, but it was my only chance. Grabbing a wrench from the workbench, I smashed the glass. The sharp sound echoed through the basement, and I winced, hoping no one outside had heard. I cleared the shards with my sleeve and started to climb through. My shoulders barely fit, and the jagged edges scratched my arms as I pushed myself forward. Suddenly, I heard the front door creak open upstairs. Shit, I muttered under my breath, panic setting in. Footsteps echoed above me, heavy and deliberate. He was back. I pushed harder, trying to wiggle my torso through the narrow frame. Just as I got my head and shoulders out, I felt a hand clamp around my ankle. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" the man growled, his voice furious. I kicked back with my free leg, connecting with his arm. He stumbled but didn't let go. I kicked again, this time aiming higher, and caught him square in the face. He let out a grunt of pain and released his grip. With one final push, I tumbled out of the window, landing hard on the grass outside. My lungs burned as I scrambled to my feet and bolted down the street. I didn't stop running until I was a block away. Pulling my phone from my pocket, I dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. 911, what's your emergency? There's a guy with a gun. He tied me up in his basement and stole my van, I blurted out, barely able to catch my breath. I gave them the address and stayed on the line until I saw the flashing lights of a patrol car. The police arrived within minutes. I led them back to the house, but by the time we got there, the man was gone. My van was found abandoned a few miles away, the contents untouched. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The police launched an investigation, but as far as I know, they never caught him. For weeks, I had nightmares about that day, replaying every moment in my head. I still deliver packages, but I'm more cautious now. I always check my surroundings and trust my gut. People think being a delivery driver is an easy job, but they don't see the risks we face. That day in Riverview changed me. It reminded me that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, and that survival often comes down to quick thinking and a little bit of luck. It was a quiet Thursday night at the Amazon Go store on Jefferson Street, the kind of night that stretched on forever. I glanced at the clock on my register, 1:52 a.m., just over 3 hours left on my shift. The fluorescent lights above hummed faintly, casting an almost clinical glow over the empty aisles. Aside from the occasional beep of my scanner, the store was eerily silent. "Jess, you holding up?" came a voice from the stockroom. It was Aaron, my co-worker, who was restocking the electronics section. His voice cut through the oppressive quiet. "Barely," I called back. "Another night of staring at nothing." Aaron laughed. "At least we're getting paid for it. Think of all the books and snacks flying off shelves while we stand here bored." I smirked but didn't answer. These late-night shifts paid an extra $2 an hour, but lately, I'd started to wonder if they were worth it. I leaned against my counter, my gaze drifting to the endless rows of smart displays and automated checkout kiosks. That's when I noticed it, a crumpled receipt tucked into the corner of my station. I frowned. I had cleaned the counter just an hour ago. Curious, I picked it up. The paper felt wrong. It was oddly brittle, like it had been sitting there for decades. The text was faint, but still legible. Portable cassette player, $25.99. Polaroid film roll, $8.50. Pack of Marlboro Reds, $3.25. Total, $37.74. Date, October 15th, 2002. Time, 3:07 a.m. I stared at the receipt in confusion. The items listed were strange. None of these had been sold in our store. In fact, I doubted Amazon ever carried cassette players or cigarettes. "Aaron," I called, holding up the receipt. Did you leave this here? He poked his head around the corner, a box of wireless chargers in his hands. What are you talking about? This receipt. It's from 2002. Aaron blinked, then grinned. Jess, I was 4 in 2002. Pretty sure I didn't leave it. He chuckled and disappeared back into the stockroom. I shoved the receipt into my pocket, shaking my head. Probably some prank by the morning shift crew. But something about it unsettled me, like an itch I couldn't scratch. At 2:30 a.m., the automatic doors hissed open. A man in his mid-40s walked in, wearing a tattered coat and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. His movements were odd, jerky, as though he were struggling to control his own limbs. "Welcome to Amazon Go," I said, forcing a polite smile. He didn't respond. Instead, he shuffled past me, muttering under his breath. I couldn't make out the words, but they sent a chill down my spine. Minutes later, he reappeared at the self-checkout kiosk with a portable cassette player, the same item listed on the receipt. My stomach nodded. That wasn't possible. We didn't stock those. As he approached the scanner, the screen glitched. Lines of text flickered across it, too fast to read. Then it froze, displaying just one message. "You're trapped too." "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath. The man didn't seem to notice. He placed the cassette player on the counter, his hands trembling. "They never let me leave," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Excuse me?" I said, but he turned and walked away without another word. The automatic doors opened for him, and then he was gone, swallowed by the dark street outside. By the time 3 a.m. rolled around, I was on edge. Aaron had gone completely silent, which wasn't like him. I called his name, but there was no answer. Uneasy, I made my way to the back office, hoping to find him there. The office was cramped, filled with the smell of stale coffee and cardboard. I opened a random drawer to distract myself and found something strange. A yellowed newspaper clipping tucked beneath a stack of receipts. The headline sent a shiver down my spine. "Tragedy at Amazon store. 5 dead in overnight fire." The article detailed a fire that had broken out in the very store I was standing in, back in October 2002. 5 customers and 1 employee had died, trapped inside when the fire suppression system failed. My hands shook as I read further. Witnesses claimed to have heard screams long after the fire was extinguished. The cause of the fire was listed as unknown. I slammed the drawer shut and tried to call Aaron on my phone, but there was no signal. That's when I noticed the receipt in my pocket. It was glowing faintly. New text had appeared on it. "He burned us. Justice must be served." At 3:07 a.m., the store lights flickered. The sound of the freezers grew louder, like a low growl. I turned toward the aisles and froze. They were there. Shadowy figures moved through the store, their forms distorted like reflections in a shattered mirror. A man in a burnt suit stood near the electronics section, his face a charred ruin. A little girl with singed hair skipped down the snack aisle, her laughter echoing unnaturally. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. "Aaron!" I screamed, but only silence answered me. I ran to the stockroom, desperate to find him. His vest was lying on the floor, but he was nowhere to be seen. On the wall, written in what looked like ash, were the words, "You can't leave either." Panic surged through me. I turned to flee, but the shadows blocked my path. One of them stepped forward, a woman with charred skin and empty eye sockets. "You must expose him," she rasped, "or join us." Before I could respond, a vision flooded my mind. I saw a man, Richard, the night manager in 2002, pouring gasoline near the stockroom. He lit a match and walked away, leaving the victims to burn. I gasped, the memory fading as quickly as it came. Richard was my uncle. He'd always told me the fire was an accident. I never suspected the truth. The spirits surrounded me, their cold hands grazing my arms. "Tell the world," they whispered, "or share our fate." I grabbed the store's logbook, where Richard's entries detailed his plan, and bolted for the exit. The spirits parted, letting me pass. As I burst through the doors, the world around me shifted. The air was thick with smoke and flames roared all around me. I was no longer in 2025. I was in October 2002 watching the store burn. I woke up in my apartment the next morning drenched in sweat. The receipt was gone, but my arms were covered in scars that hadn't been there before. I quit my job at Amazon Go that same day. But sometimes late at night I hear the faint hum of the freezers and the ghostly whispers of those who never made it out. It was another scorching afternoon in late July, and I had just finished loading my delivery van for the day. My name's Ethan Roberts, and I'd been working as an Amazon delivery driver for about 8 months. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid the bills, and I liked the solitude of the road. Besides, I prided myself on my efficiency. I could get through 150 packages in a day without a single missed delivery. That day, I was assigned to a quiet suburban neighborhood on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. It was a nice area, big houses, freshly cut lawns, and streets so silent you could hear the hum of cicadas from a mile away. The kind of place where nothing ever seemed to happen. Around 3 p.m., I pulled up to a house on Willow Creek Drive. It was your typical 2-story home, painted in a fading shade of pale blue with a white picket fence. The yard was immaculate, and there were kids' toys scattered on the lawn. One of those houses where you just assumed everything was picture perfect. I grabbed the package from the back of my van, a medium-sized box with "Fragile" stamped on the side, and made my way to the front door. As I approached, something felt off. The door was slightly ajar, not enough to seem alarming, but enough to catch my attention. I paused, looking around the street. It was empty. No cars driving by, no kids playing outside. Just me, the heat, and that open door. Maybe they're home, I muttered to myself. I knocked lightly, then called out, "Amazon delivery. Anybody home?" No answer. A faint noise floated out from inside the house, a rhythmic thumping sound, almost like something heavy being dragged across the floor. My instincts told me to leave the package and walk away, but my curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer to the door and peered inside. The living room was dimly lit, and at first glance everything seemed normal. A couch, a coffee table, family photos on the wall. But then I saw it. Someone standing in the middle of the room, their back turned to me. They were dressed in a black hoodie and jeans, and in their hands they gripped what looked like a crowbar. I froze. "Hey," I called out hesitantly, my voice shaky. "I'm just here to drop off a package." The figure spun around so fast it made my heart jump. They were wearing a ski mask, and their eyes locked onto mine, cold, angry, and full of menace. For a moment we just stared at each other, neither of us moving. Then they raised the crowbar, pointing it at me like a warning. "Get out of here," they snarled, their voice low and menacing. "This isn't your business." My blood ran cold. Okay, I stammered, raising my hands in surrender. "I'm leaving." I turned and started backing away, but as I reached the porch steps, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Before I could react, the figure lunged, swinging the crowbar with all their strength. I ducked, and the metal smashed into the wooden doorframe, splintering it. "Jesus Christ!" I yelled, stumbling down the steps. I hit the ground hard, but adrenaline kicked in, and I scrambled to my feet. The figure was already coming at me again, the crowbar raised high above their head. I bolted toward my van, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. "Get back here," the person shouted, their footsteps pounding the pavement behind me. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut just as they reached the van. They started banging on the window with the crowbar, their masked face inches from mine. "I said get out!" they screamed, their voice muffled but furious. My hands were shaking so badly it took me a second to jam the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life and I slammed the van into drive, peeling out of the driveway so fast my tires screeched. In my rearview mirror, I saw the figure standing in the middle of the street, still clutching the crowbar. Then, to my horror, they turned and walked calmly back into the house. I drove a few blocks away and parked on the side of the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. My heart was still racing and I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. Okay, think, I muttered to myself. My phone was in the cup holder. I grabbed it and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice answered. I think someone broke into a house on Willow Creek Drive, I stammered, struggling to get the words out. They're armed. They tried to attack me. The operator asked me for the address and a description of the suspect. I gave them all the information I could remember: the black hoodie, the ski mask, the crowbar, and within minutes, I heard the distant wail of sirens. I stayed parked where I was, watching as 2 police cruisers sped past me and turned onto Willow Creek Drive. I wanted to leave, to get as far away from that house as possible, but I knew I needed to stick around in case the cops had questions. So I waited, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. About 10 minutes later, I saw the police escorting the figure out of the house in handcuffs. Even from a distance, I could see the defiance in their posture, the way they walked with their head held high, as if they weren't the least bit sorry for what they'd done. A police officer approached my van and tapped on the window. I rolled it down, trying to steady my breathing. "Are you the one who called this in?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Is everyone okay?" The officer nodded. "No one was home, thankfully. Looks like they were trying to rob the place. Thanks to your quick thinking, we were able to catch them in the act." I nodded, but I didn't feel relieved. If anything, I felt more shaken than ever. The thought of what could have happened, of how close I'd come to getting seriously hurt, kept replaying in my mind. "You did the right thing," the officer said, giving me a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Not everyone would have had the guts to call this in." I managed a weak smile. "Thanks." The rest of my route that day was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about the encounter, the way the figure's eyes had burned with anger, the sound of the crowbar smashing into the doorframe, the sheer panic I'd felt as I ran for my life. For days afterward, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, that the person I'd seen might come looking for me. I started being extra cautious on my deliveries, double-checking addresses and keeping an eye out for anything unusual. Every time I knocked on a door, I braced myself for the possibility that something, or someone, might be waiting on the other side. It's been months now, and I'm still trying to put that day behind me. People always assume delivery drivers have an easy job, but they don't see the risks we face. They don't know what it's like to stand on someone's porch, your heart racing, wondering if you're about to walk into a nightmare. All I know is, I'll never look at an open door the same way again. The sun peeked over the horizon as I loaded the last box into the back of my Amazon delivery van. My name's Michael Hayes, and I've been delivering packages for Amazon for almost 3 years now. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but it paid the bills and kept me moving. That morning, the air was crisp. The birds chirped their usual tunes and the neighborhood streets were quiet. Just another day on the job. I double-checked the scanner in my hand and saw that my next stop was just a couple of minutes away, so I hopped in the van and turned up the local radio station. My route today was through Pinewood Heights, a sleepy suburban area in Pennsylvania. It was one of those neighborhoods where every house looked like it came out of a catalog. Perfectly trimmed lawns, white picket fences, and a Labrador barking in every other yard. My first few stops were routine. Pull up, grab the package, scan it, drop it off, take the photo for proof, and head out. By the time I reached Red Maple Drive, I was already thinking about lunch. I parked in front of a modest blue house, grabbed a small box from the back of the van, and walked it up to the front porch. "Morning," an elderly woman called out from her driveway, waving as she watered her plants. "Morning, ma'am. Got a delivery for you?" I replied with a smile, setting the package down and snapping a quick picture. It was moments like this that made the job feel less monotonous. Little interactions, a quick wave or smile, they broke up the routine. I jogged back to my van, climbed in, and punched in the address for the next stop. It was about 15 minutes away, giving me just enough time to zone out a bit. I pulled onto the main road, my mind wandering as I planned out my evening. That's when everything changed. I was halfway to the next stop when I felt it. A cold, hard blade pressed against the side of my neck. My heart stopped and I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Someone was behind me. "Don't scream. Don't move. Just drive," a deep voice hissed into my ear. I froze, my mind racing. How did someone get into the van? Did I leave it unlocked at the last stop? "Hey man, take whatever you want," I stammered, my voice trembling. "The cash box is in the glove compartment." "Shut up," he snapped, pressing the knife harder against my neck. "I don't care about your cash, just keep driving. I'll tell you where to go." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. My hands were shaking as I kept the van moving. I glanced in the rearview mirror and caught a glimpse of him. A man in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over his face. His eyes were sharp, wild, and full of malice. "Don't even think about looking at me," he growled, yanking my head forward by the collar of my jacket. "Eyes on the road." He directed me off the main road and into the industrial part of town. The streets grew emptier, and soon we were driving past old warehouses and factories that hadn't seen use in decades. My mind was spinning, trying to come up with a way out. "You don't need to do this, man," I said cautiously, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's just packages back there. Nothing worth going to jail over." He let out a dry laugh. "You think I care about jail? Just keep driving." Eventually, he made me pull into the lot of an abandoned warehouse. The place was falling apart. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, and weeds growing through the cracks in the pavement. He ordered me to park near the loading dock and turn off the engine. "Out!" he barked, motioning with the knife. I raised my hands and stepped out of the van. He kept the blade pointed at me as he rummaged through my pockets, taking my phone and wallet. "Get on your knees," he said, grinning. "This'll be over quick." My stomach dropped. "Please, man," I begged. "You've got what you want, just let me go." "You're right," he said with a smirk. "I do have what I want." Then he climbed into the driver's seat of the van, slammed the door and sped off, leaving me kneeling in the middle of that desolate lot. I sat there for a few moments, stunned. My van, my belongings, my livelihood, gone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely stand. After what felt like an eternity, I forced myself to move. I walked to the edge of the lot and found a dirt path leading to the main road. My legs felt like lead and my heart was pounding, but I kept moving. Eventually, I saw a car coming down the road. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust anyone after what just happened, but I didn't have much of a choice. I stepped into the road and waved my arms. The car, a rusty old sedan, slowed down and pulled over. "You okay, man?" the driver asked as he rolled down the window. He was a middle-aged guy with kind eyes. "No," I said, my voice cracking. "I got robbed. He took everything, my van, my phone, my wallet." "Shit," the guy muttered. "Hop in. I'll call the cops." The police arrived about 20 minutes later, and I gave them my statement. They asked me to describe the man, the van, and everything that had happened. They assured me they'd do everything they could to recover the vehicle, but I wasn't holding my breath. The rest of the day was a blur. I called my manager from the police station explaining what happened. She was sympathetic, but understandably frustrated. The van was company property after all. For weeks, I couldn't shake the fear. Every time I got behind the wheel of another delivery van, I found myself glancing over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. I started locking the van religiously, even if I was only stepping out for a second. Eventually, the police found the van abandoned on a back road. Most of the packages were gone, but they recovered my phone and wallet. It felt like a hollow victory. The incident changed me. I learned to be more cautious, more aware of my surroundings. But no matter how much time passed, I couldn't forget the man's voice or the feeling of that blade against my skin. Even now, every time I step into a delivery van, I can't help but wonder, will today be the day it happens again?